Hello, I am Joshua from Thundermite Studios, and today I bring you my review of the Thor trilogy. This review will cover Thor, Thor the Dark World, and Thor Ragnarok. So I am honestly really conflicted on the Thor as a character. I mean not as a character, as a movie franchise. I absolutely adore Thor Ragnarok. I think Thor 1 is okay. It's good, not okay. And I hate Dark World. My least favorite movie I've ever watched. But yeah, we'll cover this movie a little different. It'll be each movie have its own section. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into Thor 1. The characters in Thor as follow. Chris Hemsworth's Thor. I actually forgot how much I like the journey Thor takes in this movie. I love how he just goes from this arrogant guy to, a hero. In my opinion, it happens too quickly, but I like the way they pull it off. They pull it off within 3 acts. Act 1, super arrogant, really annoying, which is good. Act 2, which I think is from, after they go, right before they go to get the hammer during the drive, to probably right before Loki is revealed to be a full-on villain. So, most of the movie, he's still really arrogant, more arrogant than normal Thor is, but at the end of the day, he's still, Thor, and he's still not as arrogant as he was before. In Act 3, completely selfless. In fact, Thor in the MCU, I like the side of Thor that's more comedic and more just serious and selfless. Like, the arrogant Thor, although entertaining, I prefer the Thor that is completely selfless. Like, Thor is literally the most selfless character. Captain America is a contender, but I still think Thor might be more selfless. And I honestly love almost everything Thor's in, because I like Thor as a character. The next character would probably be... Let's cover Jane. Jane is supposed to be the love interest who's tough, and I think they pull this off very well. Like, modern MCU has tried to put women, which is a good thing, by the way, at the forefront, and, you have those cringy scenes. Infinity War not as bad, Endgame being absolutely terrible. Now, you can have a strong female character, why not pushing it off as just trying to be woke? Or failing at actually, Captain Marvel is why Captain Marvel is such a big failure. But, a movie that you can make a strong character, this is an example. She's strong. She doesn't need anyone to help her out. She can hold her own. I feel like Thor Love and Thunder will also play into this. But, yeah, generally, really good character, I think. It's how you do a strong female character without seeming over the top on it. Speaking of it, let's talk about Darcy. Although having a stronger character in WandaVision, I think Darcy is a good comic relief in this film. She's the character, although this is this is one of the most serious MCU films, only being beaten out, in my opinion, by Eternals. I still feel like this film really needed Darcy in general, because I don't like serious films too much. I can get past certain movies, if you guys have seen Nobody, it's great. The Jurassic World original is pretty good too. Like I said, I think I said this already, Eternals really isn't that bad. I can be okay, and this film isn't that bad. I can be okay with serious films, but Darcy is needed in this film for comic relief. She gives so much, relief. Because you have a serious moment where, Jane's stuff will be taken away. You'll just have Darcy come in and just be the biggest comic relief in the world. It's awesome. Every serious movie needs its comic relief. I feel like comic reliefs are played up too much in current movie in Hollywood. Every movie has to have a comic relief. In this movie, it's Darcy. It's just Darcy in WandaVision during the serious moments outside the Hex. So we have a comic relief. Every action movie, they'll have The Rock and Kevin Hart together, and there'll be serious moments of Kevin Hart being the comedy relief about his height. It's I just don't like the way they're treating comic relief. Comic relief is a once in a while thing. You shouldn't be using comic relief as much as people do in Hollywood. only the most serious of movies need a comic relief. And you don't even need a comic relief. Of course, you could have a comedy center film. Like the Thor Ragnarok, it's still pretty serious, although it's centered around comedy. And you can still have comedy relief. Like, I feel like Hulk might be the... No. In the serious moments, Hulk is the comedy relief. Like, towards the end when he's destroying Asgard. But, yeah. Darcy did a pretty good job. And on that note, let's get into plot. The plot for Thor 2011 is as follows. Ice giants attack Asgard, so Thor forces the Warriors 3 and Loki to invade their home realm. Ends up almost getting killed and not care about anyone around him, and gets banished by Odin. He lands in New Mexico with his hammer being stuck and him being unworthy, and he has to learn how to become human with Jane, Old Man, and Darcy. Throughout the movie, we see stuff like him liking coffee. He asks for a horse. And they unravel a plot by Loki. Overall, this plot is pretty solid. It covers Thor becoming human. It covers Loki asserting his dominance on Asgard. It covers the Warriors 3. It covers everyone in a very positive light. There are a few things it gets wrong. For one, the shaky camera angles. Now, this is definitely the fault of the director. You can tell his style is in this movie. It's so shaky, the camera. It's always diagonal. And this works in certain scenes, like the crowning scene. It works in the final fight. But it does not work in most scenes. Like the camera, and then another thing is how dark the fight scenes are. Like the first 20 minutes of the movie is super dark. The movie needs more light. At least why it's on Asgard. Besides that, I honestly have almost no issues with the plot of this movie. I know it's cinematography and directing rather than plot, but I guess it kind of plays into the plot a little bit. Overall, like, it is kind of routine and, unoriginal. Oh my god. Fallen Prince must climb his way back up and learns what it means to be a true king. But it plays mythology in a very strong way, and it is faithful to the comics much more than certain movies are in the MCU. Again, don't care. Go away, comic junkies. But, like, it's at least worthy to note. And overall, this movie really is serious. Only outshined by Eternals. The only funny part of the movie is maybe half of Act 2. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into action. Action scene 1 is them invading the ice giants. This is a pretty good fight scene, having all of them working together. It's not really meant to be action heavy. It's meant to... This movie in general is surprisingly non-action heavy, in my opinion. But it basically just is showing how arrogant Thor is and how he needs to learn to be less arrogant. Action Fight 2 seems to be... What is it? Thor versus the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, which again serves a narrative purpose. But I liked it. It shows how powerful Thor is compared to normal humans, even in his mortal form. He can outpower like 100 guys. It's crazy. And Action Fight 3 against the, I completely forgot what it's called. The big iron metal thing. It's basically just meant for narrative purpose. Pretty good fight scene, though, showing how powerful Thor is again. And how selfless Thor is. But overall, this is a really short section because action in the scene really isn't plentiful. It's not like when I reviewed Avengers Infinity War and there's tons of action in that movie. It's just narrative. If I'm forgetting one, make sure to comment it, but I don't think I'm forgetting anything. And yeah, that covers Thor 1, so without further ado, let's get into the verdict for Thor 1. Overall, a very solid film. Definitely worth watching if you haven't seen it before. I would give it a very solid 7 out of 10. Very solid film. I don't like the director and what he did with this movie, but the plot's very good and very decent movie. Yeah, so Joshua from about maybe 5 hours later, I forgot to mention the epic feel. Like, the camera angles are epic, right? And so is the music, the transformations. They all feel so mythology like, and they have such an epic feel. But yeah, now we're gonna go back to Joshua from about 4 hours ago. So later. So on that sort of negative, sort of positive note, let's get into Thor: The Dark World. Okay, dear Lord, I forgot how bad Thor: The Dark World was. So, this movie came out in 2014 to absolutely everyone hating it. This is only my third time ever seeing it. I saw it once back in 2018. I think it was on Netflix when I saw it. I saw it for a second time, I think back in February, because I just had gotten Disney Plus maybe back in December, and I wanted to watch it. And then I watched it again for this review. And I can say, the first time, I hated it. The second time, I hated it. The third time, still my least favorite Marvel movie, but it's just mediocre at this point. This movie does some things good, like its siege on Asgard. It does the entire middle act, which is, no, the entire ending of the first act, which is the siege on Asgard. So, yeah, without further ado, I guess let's get into characters. So this is going to be a super short section. Since I already covered most characters, we'll kind of cover, I guess, how they changed. Thor. Since the first movie, he's kind of matured. Like, the whole war thing they talk about when talking to Jane, it's just, he's basically matured by a lot. His character in general in this movie actually is much more reserved. And this is one thing I think the director did really well. Like, Thor's more, like, less cocky in this movie. He's still pretty cocky, so it's signature Thor, but it's, like, less cocky. Next is the scientist guy. I think his name is Eric. Eric is in 4 MCU movies total. He's in Avengers, Thor, Thor Dark World, and Avengers Age of Ultron. In this movie, he's kind of crazy after the events of Avengers. Pretty interesting in the movie, mainly the comic relief. Him and Darcy together really are the comic relief of this movie, which I think is where the movie falls flat. They had too much comic relief mixed with the action. Thor can be good as comedic, and Thor can be good as action, but it has to be, like, one has to be prevalent, not both. Let's cover the main villain, Malekith. Hands down one of the worst villains in a superhero movie I've ever seen. Oh my god, this villain poses no threat. The threat of all the 9 realms being destroyed is overshadowed by, like, no major bad guy. Like, I get it. I get it. Like, they just showed him flashbacks. Like, I don't want to see a flashback. I want to see him actually doing stuff. Because, like, he fights Thor at the end, right? And I get it, he's not powerful. He's, like, just a king at this point. But, like, come on, you can make him more powerful than that. Hela, Hela is a great villain because she shows threat. You're scared of Hela. But I am in no way scared of Malekith. Like, he tries to show his strength by killing, Phaedra. But you don't feel it. You feel the impact of Phaedra's death, which I think is the one thing this movie does well. Its entire Asgardian act. But, like, this entire other movie is just absolute garbage in every single way. And I'll get into that when we get into plot. But before that, let's talk about this guy. Oh my god, this guy is absolutely awful. So, I'm not a big CGI stickler, right? I don't care if CGI is bad, as long as it's at least, like, it gives you the illusion. Because that's all CGI is, an illusion. This movie has pretty decent CGI, except for Curse. And also this villain, I like how menacing this villain is, though. It's a villain that's actually, if you look at the part where he kind of catches Thor's hammer, he's actually worthy. And even if you're a bad guy, as long as you do it for a noble cause, like, he thinks he's doing it for a noble cause, so he's worthy. This is a super interesting villain. The only issue is that he doesn't get any time on the screen. They don't make him feel like a threat. This movie should have been 2 hours and 20 minutes. If they spent less time at the first battle, which by the way is like 15 minutes, they could have fleshed out. They could have spent 10 minutes, fleshed the character for 7 minutes, or you know, the part where they're kind of getting Loki away, just in the halls alone, takes like 10 minutes. If they'd cut down on the jokes, again, they could have established Curse as a big villain, the Hand of Malekith. But they don't establish these people as good villains. You see him kill, but in my opinion, you don't feel the threat. You only start feeling the threat once he gets the stone, which is not a good thing because it doesn't feel like that big of a threat. Because we all know that Thor will always win, but you don't. There are no stakes. There are no stakes at all. I just don't feel stakes. I hate the villain in this movie, but I'll talk about that more in plot. Anyway, with that kind of precursor, let's get into plot. The movie begins with... what should I start with? It begins, I guess, with Malekith alluding to how he's a villain and him trying to find the ether, which is in Jane. Jane goes to explore some area and find out the hard way that the ether exists, and it takes her body over like a parasite or a symbiote. Before this, though, Thor is reminiscing about Jane, how he has to stop a big war happening in the Nine Realms. And Heimdall can't see Jane, so Thor goes to help Jane. Realizes Jane is super sick, with the ether trying to protect Jane. A little thing happens, Malekith attacks Asgard, and they kill the mom. Which, by the way, the Asgard, I know I said this tons of times, but the Asgard scene is actually a good part of the movie. And then they have a 4-minute death scene, like, after her death, and it's insane. It's too long. After this, the movie takes massive downhill where they go to stop them at the planet and spend a 15-minute sneaking out section, which should only be about 8 minutes, but whatever. The film doesn't need to be fleshed out at all. But then, boom, they fight. Their plan is to break the ether, but it doesn't work, and Loki dies. But rather than revealing that he dies in a post-credit scene, right, like you should do, they just reveal it in the movie. Like, no, we all know Loki's gonna survive, but he's not gonna die from being stabbed. Like, stop. Just don't. Just stop. Don't reveal him during the movie. This leads to a very stupid final act, with to stop Malekith from destroying all 9 realms to bring blackness to the world again. Overall, the plot of this movie is absolutely terrible. I don't feel stakes. Like, the stakes in this movie are non-existent. The only stakes I ever felt was, again, when they were sieging on Asgard, because it's like, oh my god, they're gonna kill Ragnar, or they're gonna kill Jane. Only time I ever felt a threat in this movie. And it was great, because I absolutely adore that Asgard section, and that's my favorite part of the whole movie. And if it were just that section, it would probably be my top 15 Marvel movies. It would be better than a lot of other Marvel movies. But no, they have to mess it up with the final act. I think this is the plot. I'm not even gonna talk about the Asgard siege. I also like, when it's serious, it can be good. And it's trying to say something about Marvel when its worst movie is just mediocre. That says something about Marvel, doesn't it? In my opinion, their worst movie is just mediocre. That's funny. So, yeah. Another thing about the plot, too, I feel like it takes too long. It picks up immediately with Thor's been up to since Avengers. And honestly, I like that about the movie. But it's also all I have to say about positive. Negative number 1, you don't feel a threat from the villains. Negative number 2, the third act sucks. Negative number 3, you feel no threat. Problem number 4, it feels like Justice League but Marvel. Trying to act serious, trying to be funny. You even have the same type of humor, which I'll eventually get to Joss Whedon's. I'll eventually get to Joss Whedon's Justice League. Trust me. Ooh, we're gonna go there. I don't know, some stuff to say to Joss Whedon, but yeah, that's basically all I have for plot, which is me purely ranting. Without further ado, let's get into action. The action scenes in this movie are as follows. Action 1, the beginning of the movie. Not a bad action scene. It kind of shows that the Warriors 3 and Sif work together, and it shows the power of Thor and how, like, the toughest person on the enemy side can't take Thor. Thor can very easily, just with his hammer, take out the threat. Overall, a pretty interesting comedic fight scene. This is kind of the Thor I want to see. You don't need to be serious to have a good time with Thor. Action scene 2, I think it's the siege on Asgard. I may be wrong. I'm not even going to talk about the siege on Asgard. I love the siege on Asgard. It basically is just Malekith and the big curse going around looking for everyone. They go look for Jane, they go look for the mom, they kill the mom. Pretty good fight scene overall, not much action. I like how they're just easily able to breach the defenses, showing how Odin's getting a little arrogant. Action scene 3, the final battle. I need to do a video. I know that this is just like a quick segment, but I need to do a video essay on this movie, like kind of know how I did with Spider-Man No Way Home's final scene. I need to do that with this movie, and I need to go over why the second act is so good and why the third act sucks. Just like fully going through this movie, literally bit by bit. I have to watch it like 3 or 4 times, and I have to explain it. Because I've watched movies multiple times for reviews. Like, this week's video was originally going to be how Anakin turned to the dark side. I had to cancel that video because it had really too much preparation behind it. Like, I literally need to watch all 3 movies, and I need to watch the Clone Wars. Which I haven't even seen the Clone Wars. Don't kill me in the comment section. I'll get to the Clone Wars eventually. But, yeah, I just had to cancel that video. But I would love to do a video essay on maybe this video. On this movie. It'd probably be like 30-40 minutes where I just go through this entire movie literally scene by scene. And I break it down. And kind of explain why I like it. And why I'm so conflicted on this movie. Why it's the worst Marvel movie. By a long shot. Like with Iron Man 2, which is my third favorite Marvel movie. I loved it as a kid. I still think I think it's a mediocre movie. Literally, there is nothing good about it. Even with Eternals, there is nothing good about Eternals. I'm so conflicted on this movie. It is the worst movie by a long shot. But yeah, I'm done praising and defaming Marvel at the exact same time. Let's get into... Funny enough, actually, we're done. So, I'll see you guys when I'm done watching Thor Ragnarok. Oh my god, I forgot how much I love Thor Ragnarok. Top 3 Marvel movies I've ever watched. So, Thor Ragnarok is amazing. I love how it blends comedy and action. The movie was so good. I watched it 20 minutes, fixed an issue with the video, and then kept recording this area. Oh my god, this movie is so good. It's hilarious. Hela is the best villain I've seen in a Thor movie, and one of the best Marvel villains we've ever seen. Taka Weenie, something like that. The director did an amazing job. The camera's perfect. The VFX on Hulk are some of the best in movies, period. And it's so good. So without further ado, we're going to dive right into the characters. First up, Valkyrie. Valkyrie is like the replacement for Jane Foster in this movie, if it makes sense. A tough female who can do anything she wants. Isn't she also LGBTQ? Which is a good thing. I think, what is that going to touch more on Thor Love and Thunder? But I like her character a lot, because, like, even she can go head to head with the Hulk in that little scene. Very interesting character. I think it's a good replacement for Jane, although I would like to see Jane in this movie. Would have been hilarious to see Jane kind of talk to Hela. I guess they probably couldn't have fit her in the script. Because, I mean, like, what are they going to do? I mean, I guess you could have Thor bring Jane to Asgard. Realize it's Loki, then you can... Okay, yeah, but Jane wouldn't fit very well. They have to change the script up by a lot to include Jane. Next up is Hulk. The VFX king himself. Thor CGI is amazing in this movie. I really wish they hadn't revealed him in the trailers. I wish it was a surprise when we went into the theater and just saw Hulk in there. Great addition. The comedy relief is probably a mix of Valkyrie and Hulk. Mainly Hulk, but I like his storyline of feeling bad in Endgame. It's kind of like an adaptation of World War Hulk. Really crossing my fingers for a Hulk movie, and a Scarlet Witch movie. I would pay for those. But on the other hand, I think he's a little extra. He didn't need to be in this movie. They could have very easily cut him out. But I liked his addition. I thought it was really funny. His chemistry with Thor really explored in this movie. I thought it worked really well. I would have liked to see... Again, I would like to see him interact with Jane. Jane's a good character. I don't really understand people hated Jane so much. She was okay. As long as she wasn't, like, too prevalent, she was fine. And, like, this movie is so good, though. I'm still gushing over this movie, even, like, 30 minutes after I watched it. Hulk is a great addition. I love how he's in here. I like how it adds a thread. I like how Doctor Strange is in here, too. It adds a thread of, like, okay, so this is in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because we didn't really know that up until this point. The movie really couldn't have connected. No, I'm just joking. But so I like Doctor Strange's inclusion as well. Next, we'll cover Thor himself. Thor's whole journey in this movie is that his journey to be king. They kind of backstepped this in Endgame and kind of made him not king anymore, which I'm okay with because I don't think Thor should be king in the first place. He'll eventually turn into that king from the comics, future to help defeat Gore. Not in this movie, not in Thor: Love and Thunder, but they helped out in the comics. He'll eventually turn into that Thor. I think it's like Odin King Thor or something like that. Eventually, probably towards the end of the MCU, like when he's about to die. I like Thor's journey in this movie. It humbles him down even further than what original Thor did. I like how it destroyed Asgard. I like the scene where it goes, "My father once said, a king cannot wage war but must always be ready for it." Which is the first scene we see Odin in the entire MCU. It's just really good. And I love the way they were able to use that to their advantage in this movie. Next, we'll cover the greatest villain I've ever seen, Hela. Hela is such a good villain, though. Like, honestly. She's threatening. That scene to establish her with the whole hammer breaking was amazing. She broke it like a piece of glass, as Loki says. It's awesome. I'm not going to touch on Loki. I'd rather touch on Loki when I do a review of Loki series, which I want to do eventually. Since Loki Season 2 is probably set for summer, I'd rather review it around summertime when Loki Season 2 comes out, but Hela is so good. She's threatening. You feel fear in Hela. And she's only in like 30 minutes, by the way. They only take like 6 minutes to establish her. And they establish her as a threat. This is everything Malekith should have been. She is threatening. You're scared of her. You know she can very easily destroy our heroes. Like, Malekith stood no chance against Thor and Loki. Hela can very easily kick both their butts. She can literally go like one-handed against Thor, which is insane. Even Thor, when he unlocked his full power, still couldn't stand against Hela. Oh my god, Hela is the best villain I've ever seen. I love Hela as a villain, though. And I know we can't see her again since she's dead, but I would adore if we just saw her later on when Thor's more powerful. That would be so cool. But, yeah, without further ado, let's get into plot. Plot in Thor Ragnarok is as follows. Thor returns to Asgard after 2 years and realizes that Odin is gone and replaced with Loki. They go to find Odin, but it ends up that Doctor Strange knows where Odin is, and they find him in Norway. Odin then dies and releases Hela, the goddess of death, and able to make Ragnarok happen. This leads to a fight on the Bifrost where Thor and Loki get knocked into a car. Loki a few weeks before Thor. Thor gets there and gets attacked by a mysterious woman, aka Valkyrie. Thor, after getting his way inside the building, he meets Valkyrie and realizes he has to defeat the champion in order to leave. The champion ends up becoming Hulk. They talk, Valkyrie joins her side, Loki joins her side, and they all head off. We come back to Hela as Heimdall is invading, or is leaving Asgard, and they have to evacuate Asgard. Which cuts back to Thor, Valkyrie, Hulk. Loki betrays them, Thor sees he's coming. They leave, Loki joins them with another ship. Hela unleashes a giant dog, almost kills them until they find the Asgardian secret hiding place. Heimdall tries to evacuate, but is stopped by the dog on the bridge. There's a massive fight where Thor realizes that Asgard is a place, is a people, not a place. Unlocks his true power, which is lightning out of his hands. He doesn't need the hammer. They're about to lose to Hela until Loki comes and evacuates the entire place with the help of the Constant Champions members. In a final moment, the car guy, I forgot his name, uses his 2 beautiful guns, Destroy, and they evacuate, and Hela gets killed by Ragnarok after Loki initiates Ragnarok and takes the Tesseract. They're about to lead everyone to Earth and to Norway, the death site of Odin, which I just realized, by the way, after watching the movie, that New Asgard is just the death site of Odin, which is really cool. So, some notes on this plot. I really, really liked this movie, though, like, actually. This movie is so good on so many levels. The plot is perfect. It establishes Ragnarok, then it establishes Hela and Loki, and how Loki feels bad. It establishes Hela's power all within the first 20 minutes. You don't fear the Collector, but you know the Collector's not messing around. It's great. It really is amazing. And honestly, I have no problems with the plot. I mean, if I were to have one issue, I feel like they don't spend enough time on Asgard. Like I like they don't spend enough time with Hela. I know I said that Hela is perfectly established, and she is perfectly established. Like they only, but I really wanted to see more time establishing Hela. Like why can't they like I would have liked if they had spent. Cause the Thor thing about the Thor movies is they're really short. Thor Ragnarok only being about 3 hours. Thor really only being 2 hours and 30 minutes. And Thor Love and Thunder supposedly 2 hours and 53 minutes, which makes sense. By the way, I just bought my Thor tickets. I'm gonna review it. If you want a speed review, make sure to watch that. But yeah, that's my only issue. My only issue is that I wish they spent more time with Hela, kind of establishing her backstory. We didn't even see a flashback with Hela. We saw a flashback with Valkyrie. But yep, literally no problems with this plot. Pretty short section for the plot. Usually it's the longest section, but I had to make it pretty short because I really have no issues with it. And yeah, that's about it. Without further ado, I guess, well, let's get into action. The action in this movie is as follows. Action scene 1, Thor versus Ragnarok. This fight scene is really good. It establishes the movie's tone of funny yet serious. The music is awesome. It establishes Thor's powers being his hammer, his lightning. Especially so, it shows his reliance on his hammer, which I like a lot. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm picking up something that's not there, but I'm picking up that they're kind of showing his reliance on his hammer, which I liked a lot. I like how fast-paced it is. It establishes the movie, which I think is something that 1, Thor Dark World failed at, 2, Thor 1 failed at, and 3, 95% of movies fail at. Which is amazing. But, that's about it. It's not really much to talk about. Action scene 2, I think, is Hela versus the Warriors 3. Oh my god, the Warriors 3 was done so dirty. Sif, like, most of the literally just 2 members died on screen. The other 2 were just, thrown to the side. Like, where's Sif? It's crazy. Like, he's just not there. It's insane. They did him so dirty. It was insane. They should have kept, one of the Warriors 3 alive. It could have been an emotional moment between Thor. Thor didn't even realize the Warriors 3 are dead. It's funny. It's hilarious to me. They just did the Warriors 3 dirty. This fight scene in general is good. Again, it establishes Hela's threat. I didn't cover the Bifrost because that isn't a fight scene. It's a chase scene. Same thing. People say it, but it's not the same thing. Also, it's not really that long anyway. But it just shows Hela's power and how you don't mess with Hela. Fight scene 3. Thor versus Hulk. It's basically, this fight scene it doesn't really establish anything. It's meant to just kind of, 1, it's meant to be a funny fight, and 2, it's meant to, it's meant, what was I going to say? It's meant to show Thor's power when he's not using his hammer. It's meant to just show you, okay, Thor has electricity power. And this is where movies work best. When they use the fight scenes to their advantage and have them further the plot rather than just be there for the sake of having action. Avengers Infinity War also did this. I feel like this is where Doctor Strange kind of failed. Because, let's be honest, the Illuminati fight scene didn't really need to be there. It was just there for fan service. Actually, no, I'm going to backtrack on that and kind of say that it was there for a narrative purpose. It was to show Wanda's power. You have to show something. You have to have a purpose to the fight scenes rather than it just being a fight scene for the sake of it being a fight scene. The last fight scene, Hela versus Thor on... I'm not going to cover the last fight scene because, again, the final fight scene against Hela and the entirety of Asgard, because let's be honest, that is just there. It's just there for, a narrative purpose, but let's cover the final fight scene, in my opinion, which is Thor against Hela. Good fight scene. It's meant for narrative purpose again and showing Thor to unlock his power and deal with Odin's death and how he needs to be the king of Asgard. It shows Hela's power when she's not even using her full power, and it still shows how strong she is. Overall, it's this movie's action scenes are very entertaining. And honestly, I struggle to find problems with this movie. This movie is my favorite in the Thor trilogy by a long shot. And if it's not in my top 3, it's in my top 5 Marvel movies, which is something saying something because I love almost every Marvel movie. Like, I can say good things even about Thor Dark World. I can say good things about Eternals, for God's sake. I have good things to say about almost any movie. But, like, this is top 5. And on that very positive note, let's get into verdict. This video has been long enough, so let's kind of get into it. My rating for it is 9 out of 10. Literally nothing wrong with it. I just don't like giving movies a 10 out of 10 because I feel like most movies don't deserve a 10 out of 10. In fact, actually, this movie might be better than Spider-Man No Way Home. I really don't know yet. I gotta rewatch No Way Home and see what my favorite is. But yeah, my final verdict for the entire Thor trilogy, I forgot to do Dark Worlds, I think, so I'll wrap it up now. Dark World is, I'm not gonna put this on the screen, is a 6 out of 10. So if Thor 1 is a 7, Thor 2 is a 6, is a 9. We'd have to round it out at about, I would say we round it out at a 7. The Thor trilogy is a 7. It would be a very solid 9 out of 10, this trilogy, if it weren't for Thor Dark World. Like, I would kind of, like, what I like to do is I like to round the score, but I wouldn't really round it if Dark World weren't in here, because, well, I love Thor Ragnarok so much, I'd be willing to give this thing a 9 rather than an 8. Like, I love this trilogy. But that's gonna wrap it up for this video. Quick thing, I think as of this video, we have 14 subscribers. We're going to reach 15 really soon. I probably by the end is probably before next week. So rather than talking about it next week's video, I'll talk about it this week's video. Thank you to everyone who subbed to this channel. I am honestly eternally grateful. Only 15 subscribers, but that means 15 people are always watching my videos at least. And most of my videos have broken 30 views recently, so thank you to everyone that's just tuning in the channel. Make sure to subscribe to this channel because if you guys subscribe, if you guys like videos, I know what to make. Like, if you like video essays, like the video essays. If you like reviews, like the reviews. If you like certain content, like Star Wars, like Star Wars. Whatever you guys want to do. So, thank you again, and enjoy the new outro. Stay electric.